I have a confession to make. I watched MasterChef. I was a fan at the start, but as the years have gone on, much has caused me concern and tainted my viewing. One of those being the lack of diversity of the hosts, but far more concerning was the presence of George Calombaris, who has been publicly exposed as failing to pay the people who worked for him properly. Thousands of people who live in the electorate of Newtown work in the hospitality industry, the fourth most common industry of workers in our area according to the latest census. Many others, like me, would have done their time in that industry too. And while George and MasterChef are no longer a thing together, what is a thing is that George got sprung underpaying his employees by $7.8 million. Let's be clear, if a worker stole $7.8 million, they would expect to go to jail. But what will happen to George? I'm pleased to put on the record that the people of Newtown do not support or endorse this kind of behaviour, and after reports of this situation first emerged, Calombaris opened his Jimmy Grant souvlaki shop, notably just behind the 7-Eleven on King Street in Newtown. But it didn't last long, and it seems that the community I represent aren't particularly keen on backing burglary by bosses. While it may be a bit of shock to some, to anyone who has worked in the hospitality industry, including so many of those who live in the electorate of Newtown, it is utterly unsurprising the extent of this kind of wage theft. I've done my time in restaurants and cafes and bars, waiting on tables of suits and fine diners in Sydney, pouring champagne for celebs and high rollers in London, and making my fair share of coffees. And while in some cases I was one of the lucky ones who was paid well and treated well, in others I was expected to work only for tips or to not get paid any extra on the weekend. For many, the situation is much, much worse. It is unacceptable, the fact that wage theft is so rife in some workplaces, and it is an impact that hits particularly hard on young people, people in casual or insecure work, people from migrant or non-English speaking backgrounds. And the tough on law and order megaphone that we usually see in this place and in liberal conservative governments in relation to some things, think policing of people at festivals or fining pedestrians for jaywalking, seems eerily silent when it comes to cracking down on wage theft. As my Greens colleague Adam Bant in the Federal Parliament tweeted while there today, if you've got a blue collar, this government throws the book at you, but if you've got a white collar, they turn a blind eye. In response to the news that Calombaris finally got the chop from MasterChef, ACTU President Michelle O'Neill said that working people have had enough of their wages being stolen and their rights being ignored, especially when those involved have made their fortunes off the back of workers. For migrant workers, it is so bad that wage theft is actually so much more often the norm rather than the exception. There is a clear reason for why we are seeing the issue of wage theft rise, and that is the increased casualisation, insecure work, and the ever-increasing restrictions placed on trade unions to be able to do their work, organising, defending, and protecting workers' rights in people's workplaces. I am a proud member of the ASU and have always been a member of my union, previously the CPSU and the NTU. I know how many people living in the electorate of Newtown and in the inner west are active and proud union members. It used to be that unions could turn up and do spot checks to ensure that workers were paid correctly. Now they must give 24 hours notice, meaning that a dodgy employer may have time to cover or hide their wrongdoings. Now what should be basic workers' rights, freedoms of association, the right to organise, as well as, crucially, the right to strike, are being fundamentally undermined and in some cases criminalised. The Greens oppose these moves and back unions and workers fully, including their right to organise and their right to strike. Lots of hospo workers who know that they are being subjected to wage theft go to the Fair Work Ombudsman, but this body is so underfunded that it only has the capacity to take action against the most serious and major wage thieves, leaving employees of small businesses completely on their own or with significant delays. The New South Wales Liberals talk the talk on jobs, but fail to actually care about the people that have those jobs. The 4,200 people working in the hospitality industry in the electorate of Newtown and the many, many more workers across New South Wales All these people deserve protections from the greedy Georges of the world. And the best way that we can do this is to strengthen laws against wage theft and reform laws to allow unions to do their work protecting the workers of New South Wales.